Kit Allowitz. Welcome to the Leadership Journey. I've got today, yet again, with me, Brett Savage. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We want to talk about phases, and specifically the homework that all of us were engaged on in the last couple months in trying to figure out phases and figure out what phase we're in and how we can be more efficient and effective in terms of contribution. So I've got a number of questions for you today, Brett, that I'd like to work through as we emerge on talking more about our homework related to phases. So here's my first question. I have spoken, me personally, with a number of the folks on our journey, and it's come up often about how do I figure out what phase that I'm in. I know I can read the document, and sometimes that can be helpful, and other times it can be misleading. Walk us through what should I be thinking about as I try to self-identify what phase I'm in?
The biggest is not to do what we call phase inflation, to think that I could potentially be phase 3, so I'm in phase 3. It's not about potential. That's a great thing.
Great point.
Good for you, but the phase you're in is how you predominantly contribute to the business. So if what you do as an individual contributor, irrespective of your title, because this has nothing to do with titles, is if what you do at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the quarter is what you did, that's the impact you made, you're in phase 2. Good heavens, we're all in phase 2. It's great to be in phase 2. Now, you're in phase 1 if you're in the first 90 days. That's a default. After that, it gets a little fuzzier. But most managers are in phase 2 because what they do day in, day out is they contribute on their own. And so almost everybody's in phase 2. And that's fine. We've got to come to terms with that.
Yeah.
So the biggest is don't inflate it and think that 3 is better than 2. It's not necessarily.
That's great advice. Great wisdom.
I'm in phase 2. I'm okay with that. I've made peace with that.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you for that. So that brings up yet another question I've engaged a number of our members on that I'm curious to get your reaction to. As we think about, and this has really been the entry point for my fascination with this whole idea of the phases, is performance versus contribution. So talk to us a little bit about how do I think through my own personal possibilities for increasing my contribution in my current job?
Well, let me tell you what it isn't. It isn't working longer hours or working harder, because that's performance. You want to increase your performance, you want to get another widget made, you add another hour at the end of the day or something on the weekend. Okay, fine. The question about contribution is, what value can I add? Very brief story. 2 guys making widgets. But at the end of the week, this widget's made and the quality is perfect. Widget A. Widget B, the quality is perfect as well. But the process of getting the equipment that they need, the quality control as they went along, and the connection with the marketing and salespeople, so it's in a box and out the door faster, widget B, that guy working on widget B, had a greater contribution value. While both had their widgets and they were great, this guy had added more value because the whole system was better as a result of him. And that's simply the difference. Can you add more value and still get the widget done?
I like what you're
Does
saying.
that help?
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Because both produced the widget, but the other one made it easier for everybody else to produce the next one, and the next one, and so on.
Yeah. Okay, great. That makes sense. Okay, so then the next question I have for you is, for me as a non-manager, thinking about working with my manager, part of the homework assignment was for each of us to engage either our learning partner, our learning buddy, or our boss, manager, and hopefully at some point, if you haven't spoken to your boss, it's coming. But help us walk through, for someone like myself, how should I be thinking about working with or communicating or engaging with my boss about where I'm at in my phases and my potential for increased contribution?
Yeah. Well, you've kind of said it, that this is the key. This is what the research shows. There may be better ways. If there are, let me know. It's to be in a regular conversation with your accountability partner, your boss, somebody, whereby you can float better ideas, own what you do, right? It's like, it's your career. You own it. The company doesn't own that. You own that. But engaging in conversation with people who can get you the right kind of assignments, projects, roles, so that it's in the communication where you co-author what your professional development plan looks like. It's not just yours, because it's not just you. You're engaged with all sorts of other people, but it's that co-authoring of your ownership around your career, and that ongoing conversation seems to help more than anything else. So you can set the expectations, load level what those look like, and then measure what the results are to see if in fact you are adding more value. It's that simple. Not easy necessarily,
Right.
but it's pretty straightforward.
Right. Okay. Got it. Well, then that brings up maybe my last question for our session today. For those of you in the audience, there's some 41 of you folks that are managers, they're leaders, that have people that report to you. Talk to those folks, if you would, Brett, for a moment about what should they be thinking about as a manager of other people in terms of their responsibility or opportunity for this whole phases contribution discussion.
Well, the data seem to suggest that the best managers are about making the people around them better. So that here's what they don't do. They don't hoard the best assignments for themselves. They're not threatened by the success of other people. In fact, they're quite thrilled by the success of other people. They share the limelight. They never take credit for what's gone on in the team. They always give that credit out. So it's kind of an interesting thing is they give all the credit away for doing the right thing, but if something goes wrong, they own it. Right? The buck stops there. So as I said to my son who was coming up in the ranks of playing football, I said, if you're going to be a quarterback, and he would have made a good one, I said, you give away all the credit for the win and take all the blame for the loss. And in a way, that's what good managers do, is they're always giving stuff away. Their information, their network, their influence, their knowledge, the assignments that they probably would do themselves, they're always giving the sexiest, coolest assignments away so that it lifts everybody else. So that's the key to anybody in phase 3, particularly if they're managers, is giving it all away.
Okay, that makes sense.
Making everybody else better.
Yeah. Who owns the bigger responsibility between the manager and their direct report in terms of owning this discussion, this ongoing?
Oh, the individual.
The individual.
It's your life, it's your job, it's your career.
Okay.
The responsibility is shared, but the ownership is yours. In your case, the ownership is mine in my case, but there's this ongoing kind of dialogue where we co-author it, but we each own it. The buck ultimately stops here.
Yeah.
So initiate the conversation, right, and keep it going. Don't offload that to anybody else. But to the managers, I say, have an open door policy and take on all comers.
Right on. Okay. Well, and maybe that'll be the challenge here coming up in a few minutes in our leadership journey is we've got to own taking that responsibility. For me as an individual contributor, I've got to own engaging my manager to have this conversation because it's important to me and I'm asking you to consider it's important to you. And on top of that, we are going to continue trying on the phases. We're not done. So if you can believe it, there's going to be more homework related to the phases between January and May in our next summit. Well, Brett, thanks for your conversation today and the answers. It's been a pleasure interviewing you, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care.
Thanks, Sean.